Oh Lord, it's good to be here with you. Imagine this. You're talking to someone. Maybe it's a date. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's someone you just met at a party. And all of a sudden you notice something shift. Their eyes glaze over just a little bit. They start looking around, they check their phone, and you feel it in your gut, that sinking feeling that the conversation just died right there in front of you, and you have no idea what you did wrong. Have you ever felt that? That moment where you realize you're talking but nobody's actually listening? Yeah, me too. And for the longest time, I had no clue why this kept happening to me. I used to be absolutely terrible with people, like genuinely awful. I'd walk into social situations thinking I was doing everything right. You know, asking questions, sharing stories, being enthusiastic, all that crap you read online about how to be a good conversationalist. But conversations would still die. They'd fizzle out like a wet firecracker. And I'd go home feeling anxious and lonely, wondering what the hell was wrong with me. I thought maybe I was just boring. Maybe I didn't have interesting enough stories. Maybe people just didn't like me. But here's the thing I learned after years of painful trial and error. After reading what felt like a 100-page document on communication psychology. After absolutely murdering countless conversations in cold blood. The problem wasn't what I was saying. It wasn't my stories or my jokes or my questions. The problem was my attitude. The problem was my intent. And that changes everything. Before we go any further, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button for Confident Connection Lab right now. Trust me, if you've ever felt stuck in a conversation or wondered why people don't seem to listen to you, you're going to want to stick around for what's coming. We're diving deep into the stuff that actually matters, the stuff nobody else is talking about. So let me tell you about one of the worst conversations of my entire life. I was on a date, right? And I was so desperate to make a good impression that I turned into this listening machine. I thought, okay, everyone says you should listen more, so I'm gonna listen like my life depends on it. And I did. I listened for 14 and a half hours. No, I'm not exaggerating. 14 and a half hours of nodding and saying things like, uh-huh, and yeah, and wow, that's interesting, and you know what happened? The date was a disaster. Not because I listened, but because I wasn't actually present. I was performing the act of listening. I was going through the motions without any genuine interest or curiosity. My intent was wrong. I wasn't trying to understand this person. I was trying to not screw up. And people can feel that. They can sense when you're faking it, when you're just waiting for them to finish talking, when you're more concerned about how you're coming across than about actually connecting with them. Here's what I discovered. Conversation is not a competition. It's not a performance. It's not about proving how smart you are or how interesting your life is or how good you are at following the rules of proper etiquette. And this is where most people, including past me, get it completely wrong. We approach conversations with this mindset of, I need to do this right. I need to say the right things. I need to avoid the wrong things. And that mindset, that attitude, is the conversation killer. Because when you're focused on not messing up, you're not focused on the other person. You're in your head instead of in the moment. I want you to pause this video for just a second once I'm done with this sentence, and think about your last conversation that felt awkward or stilted. Were you genuinely curious about the other person? Or were you worried about how you were coming across? Okay, keep that thought. So here's where things get interesting. I started researching why some people are naturally magnetic in conversations, while others, like me, seem to repel people without meaning to. And I came across the work of Carl Rogers, this brilliant psychologist who basically revolutionized how we think about communication. He talked about this idea of unconditional positive regard, which sounds all fancy and academic, but really it just means approaching people with genuine acceptance and curiosity, not judgment, not evaluation, not this internal scorecard of whether they're saying the right things or whether you're saying the right things. Just presence, just real, authentic interest in who they are and what they're experiencing. And I thought, okay, that sounds great, but how do you actually do that when you're anxious and self-conscious and worried about screwing up? And that's when it hit me. The attitude has to come first. Before you learn any technique or trick or conversation hack, you have to shift your mindset from, this is about me not messing up, to this is about genuinely connecting with another human being. Because here's the brutal truth. People are hardwired to really hate fake people. We can smell inauthenticity from a mile away. When you're pretending to care, when you're forcing a smile, when you're asking questions just because you think you're supposed to, people feel it and they shut down. And the conversation dies right there. Now, before we move on, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching this from. What part of the world are you in? I'm genuinely curious about who's out here trying to level up their conversation game. Are you in New York, Tokyo, São Paulo? Let me know. So here's what I started doing differently. Instead of walking into conversations thinking I need to be interesting or I need to ask good questions, I started asking myself a different question. Am I genuinely curious about this person right now? And if the answer was no, I'd work on getting curious. I'd look for something, anything, that I actually wanted to know about them. Not because it would make me look good, not because it was the polite thing to do, but because I genuinely wanted to understand their perspective. And you know what happened? Conversations started flowing. People started leaning in instead of leaning away. They started sharing more, opening up more, actually listening when I talked because they could feel that I had been genuinely present with them. This is the real reason people won't listen to you. It's not because you're boring. It's not because you don't have good stories. It's because your intent is off. You're approaching conversations as something to survive or win, rather than as an opportunity to genuinely connect. And that shift, that simple shift in attitude, changes everything. It changes how you listen. It changes what you say. It changes how people respond to you. Because when you stop trying to get it right and start trying to genuinely understand the person in front of you, magic happens. Real connection happens. And that's what we're all looking for anyway. All right, so now you know the problem. Your intent is off. You're approaching conversations like there's something to survive rather than enjoy. But knowing the problem doesn't fix it, does it? I spent months after my big revelation still screwing up conversations because I didn't know how to actually apply this stuff in real time. I'd walk into a social situation thinking, okay, be genuine, be curious. And then 5 minutes later, I'd catch myself performing again, trying to be interesting instead of actually connecting. It was frustrating as hell. But here's what I figured out after a lot of trial and error. After diving deep into research and testing different approaches until something finally clicked. There are specific tools you can use to shift your attitude and actually make people want to listen to you. Let me tell you about the moment everything changed for me. I was at this networking event, the kind of place where everyone's trying to impress everyone else. And I was talking to this guy who worked in tech. And I caught myself doing the thing I always did. He was telling me about his startup. And instead of listening, I was thinking about what I was going to say next. I was mentally rehearsing my response, trying to come up with something clever or insightful that would make me look smart. And then I remembered what Carl Rogers said about unconditional positive regard. Just accept the person in front of you. Stop evaluating. Stop performing. So I made a conscious decision right there in the middle of that conversation. I stopped trying to be impressive. I stopped worrying about what I was going to say. And I just listened. Really listened. Not the fake listening I did on that 14-and-a-half-hour date. Real, genuine, curious listening. And here's what's wild. The guy noticed immediately. He leaned in. He started sharing more. He asked me questions. The conversation flowed in a way it never had before. And I realized this is the tool. This is the bulletproof method. It's called active listening, but not the way most people teach it. Most of that crap online tells you to nod your head and say, uh-huh, and repeat back what the person said like some kind of conversation robot. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about listening with genuine curiosity. Listening because you actually want to understand the person's experience, not because you're trying to apply some technique. So here's how you do it. When someone's talking to you, your job is not to think about your response. Your job is not to evaluate whether you agree or disagree. Your job is to understand their perspective as deeply as possible. And the way you do that is by asking yourself questions while they're talking. Questions like, what does this mean to them? Why is this important? What emotion are they feeling right now? These questions keep you engaged. They keep you genuinely curious instead of drifting off into your own head. And when you're genuinely curious, people feel it. They feel seen. They feel understood. And they want to keep talking to you. But here's the thing, nobody tells you. This is hard. Like really hard at first. Because we're trained to evaluate everything. We're trained to have opinions and judgments and reactions. We're trained to think about ourselves and how we're coming across. So when you first start practicing this kind of listening, your brain is going to fight you. You're going to catch yourself drifting. You're going to catch yourself rehearsing responses. And that's okay. Don't stress about it. That's all right. We're all in this together. The key is to notice when it happens and gently bring yourself back to genuine curiosity. Now here's another tool I discovered that changed the game for me. Paraphrasing. But again, not the robotic kind. I'm talking about reflecting back what you heard in a way that shows you're trying to understand their experience. So instead of just repeating their words like a parrot, you say something like, so what you're saying is, this situation made you feel frustrated because you felt like your effort wasn't recognized. Is that right? And then you shut up and let them correct you or expand on it. This does two things. First, it shows them you're actually paying attention. Second, it gives them permission to go deeper, to share more, to feel more understood. And when people feel understood, they listen to you in return. That's the magic. When you make someone feel genuinely heard, they become invested in hearing you too. Let me give you a specific example. I was talking to a friend who was stressed about work. Old me would have jumped in with advice. I would have said, oh, you should do this. Or have you tried that? Or, man, that sucks, let me tell you about my work stress. But instead, I just listened. And then I said, so it sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed because you're carrying this huge project alone and you're worried you're going to let people down. And his face changed. He said, yes, exactly. And then he opened up even more. He told me things he hadn't told anyone else. And at the end of the conversation, he thanked me. He said, talking to you always makes me feel better. And I hadn't given him any advice. I hadn't solved his problem. I just listened with genuine curiosity and reflected back what I heard. Here's what I want you to do right now. Think of one person in your life, one person you want to connect with better. Maybe it's a partner, a friend, a coworker, a family member. Next time you talk to them, try this. Forget about being interesting. Forget about having the right response. Just focus on understanding their experience as deeply as you can. Ask yourself, what does this mean to them while they're talking? And when they pause, reflect back what you heard. Try it once, just once, and see what happens. I promise you'll be shocked at how differently the conversation goes. And look, this isn't just about conversations. This changes life. When you start approaching people with genuine curiosity instead of performance anxiety, when you start listening to understand instead of listening to respond, everything shifts. Your relationships deepen. Your anxiety drops. You stop feeling like you're constantly screwing up socially because you're no longer focused on yourself. You're focused on connection. And connection is what we're all craving anyway. That's the real reason people won't listen to you. Not because you're boring or awkward or don't have good stories. It's because they don't feel genuinely seen and heard by you. So give them that gift. Listen with real curiosity. Show them you care about their experience. And watch how everything changes. If this resonated with you, if you're ready to transform not just your conversations, but your entire approach to connecting with people. Hit that subscribe button for Confident Connection Lab. We're just getting started. There's so much more to explore about how to build genuine, deep connections in a world that's forgotten how. Don't miss it.